Hi and welcome. Today we're going to be going over the basics of biology and development in behavioral sciences, which is the first chapter. And in this chapter, the first thing that we went over was the organization of the brain. The brain is composed of three main parts: the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain, and it's important to know the sub-organization of each of those parts. The forebrain has the thalamus, the hypothalamus, the basal ganglia, the limbic system, and the cerebral cortex. And those are all very important functions. The midbrain is composed of the inferior and superior colliculi, and the hindbrain is composed of the cerebellum, medulla oblongata, and the reticular formation. From the hindbrain to the forebrain, which is the direction of the evolutionary development of each of these systems. I'm going to go into the parts of the forebrain that I'm going to be likely to miss. The first is the hypothalamus, which is maintaining homeostasis, and it integrates with the endocrine system. And one important fact is it connects to the anterior pituitary gland. The next is the thalamus, which is a relay for sensory information. And we have the basal ganglia, which controls emotion and memory. And we have the cerebral cortex, which is for higher functions. And the limbic system, which isn't mentioned on this page, but we have the limbic system, which contains the septal nuclei, amygdala, hippocampus, which are for emotion and memory. The next section in this chapter covered behavior and how it is influenced. It also covered the neurotransmitters and endocrine systems, as well as the nature versus nurture theories. For the things that I might miss, there's the locations where some of these transmitters and endocrine molecules are formed. The ones I'm thinking I'm going to miss are the cortisol is formed in the adrenal cortex, testosterone is in the ovaries and testes, epinephrine in the adrenal medulla, and that endorphins are similar to painkillers. Something not written is the different studies that are used in the nature versus nurture experiments. There is the family studies, which is the relative frequency of a trait within a family compared to the general population. There are twin studies, which compare concordance rates between monozygotic, which are identical, and dizygotic fraternal twins. And the last one is adoption studies, which compare similarities between adopted children and their adoptive parents relative to similarities with their biology parents. And finally, in Chapter 1, we go over the development of the nervous system and the reflexes. We'll go over this more in the next chapter of biology as well, which goes over fetal development. But at this level, we know that the notochord from the mesoderm stimulates ectoderm to fold, and that fold becomes the neural tube and the neural crest. And the neural tube cells become the central nervous system, and the neural crest cells become other tissues. Finally, the things I might miss are that the Moro reflex is the reflex where babies extend their arms and cry, which is an adaptation to falling and grasping for their mother, as well as the development of abilities begins at the core and goes to the periphery, and begins at the head and goes to the toes. Finally, that social skills shift from parent-oriented to self-oriented to other-oriented, and that language becomes increasingly complex. So that was Chapter 1 of Behavioral Sciences and Development, and next week we're going to go over more of the nervous system and how it works.